Hello, Professor Roy Gardner in class. I'm Shanna Barney, and welcome to my presentation on dance and resilience. In this presentation, we're going to explore how creative arts interventions can build resilience. I'm going to discuss a series of community-based contemporary dance workshops proposed by a choreographer and psychotherapist who wants to explore the experiences of women who have undergone breast surgery. We'll touch on the historical significance of dance, take a deep dive into the theoretical basis of dance as a tool for promoting resilience, and review some recent research on the topic. I'll talk about ethical considerations for researchers who want to study dance and give suggestions for evaluating this program. Finally, I'll give some thoughts on further study and arts-based interventions for resilience. The earliest records of dance are from around 8,000 years ago, although it's likely people have been dancing for much longer. Historically, dance has provided a social experience for the expression of emotions often derived from complex, significant experiences and transitions such as weddings, healing, and coming of age. Dance can take the form of a ritual, piece of art, or a spontaneous expression. Inherent in all of these forms the dance can take is the embodied expression of emotion. So what do we mean by embodied? From a cognitive science perspective, embodiment can be described as a dynamic interaction between an organism and its environment, where first, cognition depends on the experience of having a body with sensory motory capacities, and second, those capacities are embedded in a biological, psychological, and cultural context. Intelligent behavior emerges from the interplay between brain, body, and the world. Congruently, theories of resilience that emphasize the social context in which these processes take place have developed. This illustrates the transactional nature of the individual and the environment. Contemporary theories of resilience take into account the interplay between individual and contextual factors. Taking these perspectives into consideration, for the purpose of this presentation, we will define dance as creative, embodied expression of an individual's experience within their broader social context, and will define resilience as the capacity of a dynamic system to adapt successfully to disturbances that threaten viability, function, or development of that system. Semiotics is the study of symbols and how they are interpreted. Human beings engage in complex systems of symbolic bodily actions that are laden with social and cultural significance. These modes vary according to cultural conventions or can be specialized according to age or gender. Additionally, these movements take place in symbolically rich environments. Scholars in social theory suggest older Western European models of personhood, which are influenced by Cartesian dualism, are disembodied. Western thought is still influenced by the concept of the mind and body being separate, with the mind being the locus of rationality and the body seen as irrational and the locus of feeling. Scholars argue this split has uplifted spoken and written symbols, considered products of the mind, as, quote, real knowledge, and excluded bodily expressions from consideration. However, recent research in the fields of neurobiology, psychology, and anthropology have supported theories that highlight the interdependent nature of movement, thought, emotion, and identity. Historically and in line with Cartesian dualism, expressive bodily practices that differed from European cultural norms were seen as irrational or primitive. The cultural expressions and bodily practices of colonized people, including hairstyles, intimate relationships, and rituals of dance or song, were delegitimized and policed by colonial powers. Dominant culture decides the value that is placed on the ways we communicate our ideas about identity, and therefore which expressions of those ideas are valid. Expressions valued by the dominant culture are reproduced throughout art, academia, and policy. Validating body-based expressions as real knowledge provides a symbolic language for the expression of trauma resulting from systemic oppression, For those who may not have access to education in valid forms of expression, such as academic language or fine arts. Conversely, body-based forms of expression may give those trained only in academic disciplines an alternate way of interpreting their experience. The meaning women construct around their experience with cancer or breast augmentation is mediated by biomedical discourses and dominant cultural metaphors. Through the lens of semiotics, we see how dance can provide a symbolic representation of the dancer's experience and the opportunity to construct meaningful narrative where the dancer either does not have the linguistic capacity to do so, where spoken language falls short of fully representing the dancer's embodied experience, or their social roles outside of the dancing space may limit expression to what is socially acceptable. Artists and researchers need to be aware of the ways they facilitate narratives in order to address power that is inherent to their roles as professionals, as well as the ways in which culture, colonization, class, gender, age, race, and ability contribute to the dynamics both in the room and in the participant's story. Dance movement therapy, or DMT, is the psychotherapeutic use of movement in a process that furthers the emotional, social, cognitive, and physical integration of the individual. Essentially, dance acts as a bridge between concepts of mind, body, and spirit. Dance movement therapy is being used successfully by people with medical issues, depression, anxiety, and trauma to alleviate symptoms. Meta-analysis of arts therapies and DMT have shown them to be effective in reducing anxiety and depression in breast cancer patients, enhancing the connection between body and emotion, and fostering positive perceptions of the body. When women are diagnosed and treated for breast cancer, being positioned as simply bodies, numbers, or diagnosis can cause suffering. DMT used as a psychological support service with cancer patients can assist in creating embodied narratives that challenge medical stories and offer new ways of constructing identity, giving legitimacy to patients' own interpretations of their diagnosis. As a protective factor, research has found a positive correlation between the number of hours spent in artistic activities and decreased depression. Training in the bodily expression of emotions enhances sensitivity to emotion, and dance training can help trauma survivors learn to experience and tolerate intense emotion, which is essential for recovery from trauma. Dancers also have increased awareness of bodily sensations, which correlates positively with self-awareness, empathy, pro-social behavior, and efficient decision-making. Taken together, this research suggests women who undergo breast surgery who engage in creative movement may enhance their ability to recognize, interpret, regulate, and express emotion, leading to a greater sense of efficacy, decreased anxiety and depression, and improved communication with others. The Redundant Female is a multimedia project. It is important to note this project is first conceptualized as an artwork designed to engage women who have undergone breast surgery, not as an intervention designed for a specific community to build resilience. However, research supports that participation in the arts and dance can help to enhance these resources. The Redundant Female will consist of 3 dance workshops with women who have chosen breast enhancement surgery, breast cancer survivors who opted for reconstruction, transgender women with breast implants, and women who have decided to have their breasts augmented with implants. Workshops focus on transformative aspects of breast surgery, female identity, self-image, body image, agency, and sexual identity. Portions of the workshops will be filmed, and the women will have the opportunity to participate in individual filmed interviews after completing the workshops. Following the workshops, the artist will produce a short film consisting of interviews and segments of the workshop. As with any research with human subjects, arts projects that incorporate a research component must adhere to strict ethical principles. The artist should partner with a researcher who has access to an institutional review board that can review the ethical concerns regarding the research aspects of the projects. Privacy and informed consent are of concern, as the artist and researcher will have access to privileged medical information. Steps must be taken to anonymize data and obtain written consent for any demographic, written, or filmed information. The artists and researchers should be trained in working with sensitive information in group settings and community-based research principles. When working with vulnerable or historically marginalized populations, ethical considerations are of particular importance when considering the approaches used to facilitate narrative. The researcher must consider what is relevant and of value to the subjects in order to provide a safe and empowering space for them to tell their story. One of the strengths of the redundant female as a research opportunity is the artist is also a psychotherapist and is trained in facilitating group narratives that may be of a sensitive or difficult nature. An additional strength of this project is the intention to engage with stakeholders before the workshops begin to evaluate best practices for engaging with participants in safe, accessible, meaningful, and empowering ways. Resilience is a complex process that is highly subjected to context and therefore presents challenges to researchers who wish to study it. It is important to seek flexible research tools that artists and researchers can adapt to the communities they work in while maintaining scientific accuracy. In terms of evaluation, it's necessary to first delineate the specific criteria for resilience the artist wishes to support through the work and describe how they will measure it, and two, define the principles the artist will use in order to facilitate empowered dialogue. For the purpose of this paper, we will define the first as outcome measures and the second as process measures. Using a standardized assessment such as the predictive 6-factor resilience scale may be a useful tool to assure consistent measurement of resilience. In terms of process, the 4 R's, respect, relevance, reciprocity, and responsibility, can be applied to honor ways of being and knowing that differ from white European cultural norms. In personal communication with the artist, the insular and academic nature of contemporary dance was discussed as a possible barrier to accessibility and meaningful connection to the work. The 4 R's may be a useful working framework to address these process concerns. Fortunately for artists and researchers, there are various toolkits available to help facilitate evaluations of community-based arts programs. The Animating Democracy Toolkit from Americans for the Arts provides tools for assessing outcomes, indicators, and data collection methods. However, there may be aspects of outcomes or processes specific to participants' experience that the artists or researchers may not be aware of that are relevant. Qualitative methods that first collect data and then assess relevant themes from the data may be more well-suited to arts-based interventions in diverse settings. Qualitative methods that have been used by researchers in similar contexts include grounded theory, discursive value analysis, and exploratory phenomenological design. Community-based arts programs provide opportunities to learn emotional intelligence. The Trait Emotional Intelligence Questionnaire short form is considered a reliable and valid measure of emotional intelligence and may be a suitable tool for pre- and post-intervention measures. Laban movement analysis is a method for observing and documenting movement and the objectives behind them. Researchers and artists who are trained in LMA could utilize this method in evaluation of their movement-based programs by conducting pre- and post-intervention analysis of videos of the participants. Finally, demographic data including age, gender, income, race, ethnicity, and family composition, as well as relevant diagnosis and treatment information, should be collected. Overall, incorporating research and evaluation into community arts programs offers the potential to leverage the unique wisdom and skills of artists to facilitate resilience processes in the communities where they work. Additionally, broadening artists' access to scientifically accurate, high-quality research and assessment tools can contribute to the literature supporting arts-based interventions for building resilience. However, there are several issues in implementing this art as research model. First, artists, particularly those living and working within historically marginalized communities, may not have access to the funding and academic resources, such as skilled researchers or IRBs, needed to engage in quality, ethically principled research designs. Second, measurement of resilience continues to be a challenge, and particular attention needs to be paid to how researchers and artists are conceptualizing and evaluating these constructs. Third, artists must have the ability and willingness to incorporate and empower diverse narratives into their work. This includes an awareness of the difference between lifting up the stories of collaborators and tokenizing or extracting narratives of collaborators for the benefit of the artist. Further studies on incorporating research into community-based arts programs should seek to address these issues. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope everyone has